There's a kind of conversation that happens only in the dark. No voice, no witness, no sound. Just words arranging themselves in the silence, over and over like a script no one will ever hear. The mind rehearses what was never said. It edits, sharpens, perfects. Lines that felt clumsy hours ago now sound clear, decisive, almost beautiful. But the moment has already passed. If any part of this feels familiar to you, you're not alone. And if you ever feel like sharing your experience, the comments are open. The mind rehearses dialogues in the dark while the world remains silent. The rehearsal begins when the world stops asking for anything. Lachi night, or in the shower, or staring through a window at nothing in particular. That's when the inner stage lights up. The mind starts performing conversations that never took place. It's not planning. It's not overthinking. It's something quieter, a mental habit so common it barely registers as unusual. The voice inside plays both roles, speaker and listener, question and answer. The world moves forward in silence, but inside there's a dialogue running on repeat. Phrases shift, tone adjusts, emphasis changes. It feels almost like preparation, but for a moment that's already gone. Phrases are repeated internally as if someone were going to listen. The same sentence circles back again and again, not because it needs to be remembered, but because it needs to be said right. Each repetition carries a slight variation, softer, firmer, clearer. The mind tests it, listens to it, adjusts the word. Then no one is listening, but the internal voice speaks as if someone were there, waiting to hear. It's a rehearsal for a conversation that may never happen, or one that already ended badly. The repetition isn't madness. It's a kind of invisible organization. The mind trying to settle something unfinished, to smooth out what felt rough. And in that silence, the phrase becomes clearer, even if no one else will ever hear it. Perfect answers often emerge hours after the moment has already passed. The moment has already closed. The conversation ended hours ago, maybe days, but now, in the silence, the perfect response arrives. Sharp, calm, exactly what should have been said. It comes too late to matter. The other person has moved on. The situation has dissolved into routine. But the mind doesn't care about timing. It only cares about resolution. So the phrase sits there, polished and useless, a response that would have changed everything, spoken only to the self. It feels satisfying and frustrating at once. The clarity came, but the opportunity didn't wait. Imagined conflicts give a strange sense of control. The mind creates arguments that haven't happened yet. It scripts the tension, assigns the lines, plays out the clash frame by frame. Someone accuses, someone defends. Voices rise in a scene that exists only internally. The conflict unfolds in perfect detail. Even though no one has said a word, there's something oddly calming about it. Imagining the worst gives the illusion of preparation. If the confrontation comes, the mind will be ready, answers rehearsed, defenses built. It feels like control, even when nothing is actually being controlled. But the conflict rarely arrives the way it was imagined. Reality shifts. People respond differently. The script falls apart. Still, the mind keeps running these simulations because anticipating pain feels safer than being surprised by it. Conversations that are never spoken shape real decisions without making a sound. The dialogue never leaves the mind, but it changes everything. A decision gets made based on words that were never spoken aloud. The internal conversation plays out so convincingly that it starts to feel like fact. What someone might say becomes what they will say, and behavior adjusts accordingly. It's quiet influence. No one else knows the script that's been running, but the person acts as if the conversation already happened, more careful, more distant, more prepared. The imagined exchange becomes the reason for real choices. This happens without announcement. A relationship shifts because of a fight that never occurred. A boundary forms around words that were never tested in the open air. The mind rehearses, and life responds even when the stage stays empty. The mind creates invisible audiences for words that never come out. The mind conjures an audience that doesn't exist. People who aren't there become witnesses to thoughts that never get voiced. The internal monologue plays as if someone were watching, listening, judging, but the room is empty. and the performance stays locked inside. It's not vanity. It's not performance anxiety. It's something stranger, the need to be understood by people who aren't even present. The mind builds phantom listeners and speaks to them with careful precision. These invisible crowds shape the rehearsal. Words get chosen based on how they might land with someone who isn't listening. Tone adjusts for reactions that will never come. And still, the voice inside keeps speaking as if the audience were real. Mental rehearsal is both calming and tiring at the same time. There's a strange comfort in the rehearsal. The mind loops through the same dialogue, polishing each line, finding better angles. It feels productive, almost meditative, like solving a puzzle no one else can see. For a moment, the internal noise organizes itself into something clear, but the comfort doesn't last. The rehearsal keeps going, repeating beyond necessity. What started as preparation becomes exhausting repetition. The same phrases circle back, losing meaning, turning into static. The mind wanted resolution, but finds only motion. The dialogue runs on loop, calming and draining in equal measure. It quiets one part of the self while tiring another. And still, it doesn't stop, because stopping feels like leaving something unfinished. Words that are kept hidden carry more weight than spoken words. The things that stay inside grow heavier. They sit in the silence, accumulating density, becoming more significant than they were. Words that were never said start to feel more true than the ones that escaped. The unspoken carries a strange kind of gravity. What gets voiced dissolves into the air. It's heard, responded to, forgotten. But what stays locked in the mind repeats, deepens, echoes. The rehearsed line becomes more real than the actual conversation ever was. There's power in the unsaid, not the power of impact, but the power of preservation. The mind holds onto these words, refines them, protects them from the messines of reality, and in that protection, they become heavier than anything that was ever spoken aloud. The mind revisits future scenes as if they were memories. The mind doesn't just rehearse, it remembers forward. It visits moments that haven't happened yet with the clarity of something already lived. A future conversation feels textured, detailed, almost nostalgic. The scene plays like a memory, even though it exists only in possibility. There's a strange familiarity to it. The setting, the tone, the way the words might fall, all of it feels known. The mind walks through these moments as if returning to them. Anticipation becomes indistinguishable from recollection. This isn't prediction, it's emotional rehearsal disguised as memory. The future gets processed through the same mental corridors as the past, and by the time the moment arrives, it already feels like it happened before. In silence, a person talks to themselves to prepare for the world. The rehearsal isn't madness. It's not overthinking or dysfunction. It's the mind's way of preparing for a world that moves too fast to process in real time. The internal dialogue is where clarity gets built, quietly, without witnesses. In the silence, the self speaks to the self, not to create problems, but to organize them. Not to escape reality, but to face it with something closer to readiness. The rehearsal is a kind of invisible labor, the work of becoming coherent before stepping outside. The world doesn't wait for perfect responses, but the mind tries anyway, in the only space it controls completely. And in that trying, in that silent conversation, something settles. Not answers, necessarily, but the feeling that when the moment comes, there will be something to say. In silence, a person talks to themselves to prepare for the world. Mental rehearsal is not madness. It's not overthinking or dysfunction. It's the mind's way of preparing itself for a world that moves too fast to be processed in real time. Internal dialogue is where clarity is built, silently, without witnesses. In silence, the self speaks to itself, not to create problems, but to organize them. Not to escape reality, but to confront it with something closer to preparation. Rehearsal is a kind of invisible work, the effort to become coherent before going out into the world. The world doesn't wait for perfect answers, but the mind tries anyway, in the only space it completely controls. And in that attempt, in that silent conversation, something settles. Not necessarily answers, but the feeling that, when the moment comes, there will be something to say.